This edition of The Best Times explores the post-work world in surviving retirement. You'll meet people from creative aging who bring the arts to nursing homes and assisted living centers. And we'll give you the latest information on how to avoid getting scammed. Funding for The Best Times is provided by... Since 1988, the H.W. Durham Foundation has been focused on aging issues, providing grants to programs like The Best Times to enrich and improve the quality of life for our older citizens. The Best Times is the only monthly news magazine exclusively for the age 50-plus reader. Your copy is free at over 200 locations, with important stories and news you don't want to miss. The Best Times is always the best. Trezevant, a life care community, a celebration of life. The responsible decision for your well-being now and in the long term. And being responsible has never been such a hoot. TrezevantManor.org. Some people dream of a retirement spent working in the garden, making things grow. Others picture themselves playing 18 holes of golf in the morning, and then again in the afternoon. And some want to visit that faraway land they've always wanted to see, and now they have the time. The humorist Will Rogers said, "Half our life is spent trying to find something to do with the time we have rushed through life trying to save." His take on retirement sums up the puzzle that we all feel about the post-work portion of our lives. Will we be able to retire? Will we outlive our money? And what in the world will we do with all that extra time? In tonight's cover story, we explore the financial and emotional hurdles of surviving retirement.
I think people should try retirement. I think those who say that I'm going to work until the last day because that's who I am and what I am, and when I'm done with the job, then I'm done, that's silly.
Mike and Nancy Ali reached a decision point in their lives a few months ago when the economic recession forced Mike's company to offer him an early retirement package. At 60 years old, Mike didn't think retirement was just around the corner.
I've been thinking about retirement, but it was in that future. It was around that age, you know, and my vision was at that age I will be retired. And a lot of the emotional planning had not been done. And I'm still not sure that it has been done now, even though I've been retired for 7 months now. Many of us, most of us have worked very, very hard to get to this stage of life. I am fortunate to be out in that retirement world 6 years before I had planned to be. So this is going to be 6 years of life, really of our own making, that is less dictated by others. So in a way, it's like a gift that's been given to me.
Any retirement is governed by 3 factors: your health, your money, and your emotions. Of the 3, health is the wild card. Eating right, exercising regularly, and avoiding bad habits can put you on the path to good health. But any of us are just one accident or one serious illness away from retirement disaster. But the 2 other aspects of retirement, the financial and the emotional, are well within our control. And money is the first thing people focus on. How much is enough?
The answer has several parts. One of them, though, depends on your lifestyle. But there are 3 big unknowns in terms of expenditure: inflation, longevity, and health expenses.
We try to get people to start as early in life as they can to start saving for retirement, because the amount of capital that they have when they retire will determine their lifestyle, what they can do when they retire.
Financial planners like Denby Brandon use age 95 as the upper boundary of their calculations. If you think 95 sounds overly optimistic, then think again. For a married couple turning 65 this year, there is a 60% chance that one of them will live to age 90.
The money's got to last longer, is what that means, and so that's been a revolution in my lifetime. And so now we use age 95 as kind of a target, but a lot of people are living even beyond that, and they claim in the future maybe 120. So our job has gotten much more complex because the money needs to last longer.
According to a MetLife Mature Market Institute study, 52% of adults aged 45 to 70 said they were behind in their retirement savings goals. 7% said they hadn't even begun to save any money. And the economic recession is forcing people to rethink their retirement planning. The Employee Benefit Research Institute reports that 72% of Americans expect to continue working even after they retire.
Working one extra year makes a huge difference, you know, in what you can expect. And so some people say, well, I was going to retire at 60 or 65 or 68. And we say, look, under the present conditions, we need you to work another 2 years.
Fewer people are thinking in terms, I believe, of early retirement. And more people are working part-time or going back to work.
Then the second thing you can consider is somebody has a certain number they want, and they scale back. They say, hey, you know, I'd rather start early and have less money.
But people need to be making reasonable projections and assumptions, both about how much they have, but how much they're going to spend.
Outliving your money is one of the great fears of retirement. For Americans turning 65 this year, a man can expect to live 17 more years, and a woman 20 years. As the longevity revolution continues, people will face a future where they may spend more years in retirement than they did working. So how do you make your nest egg last?
In general, I think most money managers hope hope with their clients that they will just withdraw under 4 to 5%.
4% is generally a fairly safe rule of thumb under most conditions.
The real problem is a lot of retirees do withdraw at unsustainable rates, especially single women.
Saving money and spending it wisely are two keys to retirement success. But what about the home you live in? Should you pay off the mortgage? How critical is it to enter retirement as debt-free as possible?
If you enter retirement without debt, you're way ahead of the game. And so, for example, if we have somebody, we had a fellow that came and wanted to plan for retirement, had $40,000 credit card debt. I said, look, credit card debt is financial cancer. Pay your credit card debt. We can't invest any money until you do that. But the first thing people should be thinking about as they think about retirement is trying to get out of debt entirely, at least reduce their debt.
Because the bigger debt and the more payments that requires, and the mortgage as well, then the less flexibility you have.
Social Security is one retirement benefit that you can't outlive. But what role should it play in your retirement planning?
Working until full retirement age is a good idea if it's any way physically possible, because once a retiree takes a reduced amount, they're only entitled to the reduced amount for the rest of their life. It doesn't go back up to the full amount, and I think a lot of people don't clearly understand that.
I'm not sure that people in the future can absolutely depend on Social Security. And remember, if they don't save anything, Social Security is not going to be enough to live very well. And so I don't think that people that have Social Security, they're going to stop it. But I think at some point there's going to be a needs test. Now, when it will come, nobody knows, or where they will come.
Most financial planners agree that Social Security should represent no more than 40% of your retirement nest egg. Unfortunately, fully 1/3 of retirees rely on their Social Security check as most, if not all, of their retirement income.
One truth that I hope is pretty simple but very important is it's very inconvenient to be old and broke. The amount of money you earn or even have in retirement is not the key thing. It's your financial habits. And if your spending is out of control, and there are many, many people whose spending is out of control, if your spending is out of control, it really doesn't matter how much income you have, you're going to go broke. And so improving your control of your spending is the most important thing, not only in retirement, but always.
People may spend years of their lives focused on saving money for retirement and be totally unprepared for the emotional impact of not going to work on Monday morning.
With my father and grandfather, two of my mentors, their jobs were a big part of their identity, all-consuming type professions. And for much of my life, I guess, I felt I was defined by that. But more recently, and I think even perhaps before retirement, but certainly since then, I found other ways to define myself.
A successful retirement not only requires money, but a person has to be happy with their retirement identity.
A lot of men and women, particularly men, but women too, define themselves in that work role. That's that work identity. And so when they come home, it's like, I'm not the chief executive officer or the upper level manager or the sales manager, and I don't run the nonprofit anymore, and I'm not an active physician. Who therefore am I? And so they go through a period of trying to redefine who they are.
Retirement has been described as an identity shift. It's not an event in life, it's a new phase of life. So how does one adjust to the curveball that retirement throws at you?
Anyone who feels that he or she has a purpose, has meaning in life, has a meaningful retirement. So, and that purpose could be as easily as giving back in some way to children or grandchildren or the community, or just doing something, volunteer work, doing something to feel as if they're being useful.
Unless somebody in retirement has a passion, a reason to get up every morning, it doesn't matter how much money they have. So the first advice I would give people is, if you're thinking about retirement, think about what you really would want to do.
To keep learning, to keep growing, to keep active, to keep exercising, to keep tied into the community, to keep engaged in life. I think those would be my goals as I get into these years.
The successful retiree wakes up every morning enthusiastic.
We both started working when we were 16.
Well, actually 14, but we're not.
Yeah. Now, you know, I think at one time we talked about what we would do when we retired, and his dream was to do exactly the same thing he started doing when he was 14.
Yep. I may yet own a soda fountain.
Can exposure to the arts improve the quality of life for older adults? Can listening to a 1-hour music concert result in fewer doctor visits and less medication? A study by George Washington University came to the conclusion that art has the power to change lives at every age. And that is the concept behind creative aging. When Bob Seger penned Old Time Rock and Roll, he probably pictured 18-year-olds dancing to that infectious beat, not 80-year-olds. But that doesn't stop this group of Friday night rockers at the St. Francis Nursing Home. This event is presented by Creative Aging and features one of their popular acts, Driving Sideways. It's just one of about 450 performances each year by the artists from Creative Aging.
arts changes lives, and it does, particularly with our populations. For the folks that are more independent, it's a very convenient, accessible way to get involved with the arts. For the folks who are in nursing homes, the music is so beneficial. And it reaches people at such a basic level. Even people who can't talk often sing. They recognize the music from way back when, and they get involved with it, and they move. The other important aspect is that too often the folks who are in nursing homes don't really get to interact with people outside of them. And this brings the community to them and says, you're still important to us.
For the musicians, dancing feet and smiling faces are rewards that go beyond a simple paycheck for a one-hour gig. Joe Sigmund plays bass with Driving Sideways. What do you get out of it?
A lot of enjoyment. My grandmother used to live in a retirement home, nursing home, and we enjoy bringing smiles to people's faces. And that's what we get out of it, basically.
Creative Aging has been in operation since 2005 and serves about 40 different senior populations throughout the area. They're funded by grants from foundations and individual donations. Although most of the bookings handled by Creative Aging are bands, the artistry isn't limited to just music.
We also have weaving classes, and again, it's a sense of accomplishment. We provide rigid heddle looms, so everything's provided. We also have ceramics classes where folks do hand-built items. And again, there's a real sense of accomplishment.
On another Friday night, the huge crowd at Kirby Pines Retirement Community is being entertained by the Beverly Brothers, a duo that features the music and harmonies of the Everly Brothers.
They have found it to be a mission, and it helps them in many ways in terms of giving and receiving. Very often these artists have not played for older adult audiences. There's so much they learn. The interaction is valuable.
You know, music is a common thread. It's for us and for them. So all of a sudden, it's not us and them, it's we. The intangible reward we get is that it's a you know, you're serving a bigger purpose than just the hour that you play or our self-absorption. It's the intangible reward that you get really for the memories that you bring to them. That's the beautiful part of it.
Thank you, Phoenix. Thank you very much.
We've all been tempted by offers that seem too good to be true. After all, who doesn't want to win the grand prize in the sweepstakes, even if you never entered the sweepstakes? That weakness in human nature opens the door for scammers and con artists who rake in billions of dollars every year. So the next time that Nigerian prince offers to share his fortune with you, don't believe it and don't get scammed.
I received a letter back in August of '08 saying that I was hired for a part-time customer service evaluator through Landmark Communications as a secret shopper. And they gave me 2 assignments.
Deborah Spite is an unemployed accountant. She was eager for work, and that probably clouded her judgment. She fell for the secret shopper scam. Landmark Consumer Research in New York sent her a check drawn on a bank in North Carolina. Her instructions were to deposit the check in her bank account and within 24 hours send a Walmart MoneyGram for $2,920 to an address in New York. She was instructed to take the remainder of the funds, shop at Walmart, and fill out a secret shopper evaluation form rating the Walmart MoneyGram service and her shopping experience.
And after 3 days later, found out my bank notified me and said that the check that I deposited had been reversed. And therefore I was responsible for all the money.
The check had been stolen and was worthless. Her job as a secret shopper was worthless too. And the scammers made off with over $2,900 of her money.
My bank account is frozen. I can't pull anything out. Everything I put in is going toward that balance.
Sadly, Deborah Spite's story isn't unusual. The Federal Trade Commission's most recent statistics report that over 30 million Americans fell victim to scams. And that number is probably too low because many scams go unreported. Most of the big scam operations are organized crime rings, and many operate outside the United States, where laws are less stringent. No one accurately knows the amount of money lost in these scams, but estimates put the total easily in the billions of dollars. So what are the most prevalent scams, and how can you avoid them?
The number one scam that we see here in the Mid-South are these phony lotteries and sweepstakes.
Phony lottery scams like these lure people with the promise of millions of dollars. All you have to do to claim your winnings is mail in a $19.99 report fee. Sounds legitimate enough, but it's a scam, and you're out $20. But sometimes the cost can be much higher.
Cordova lady, elderly lady, was notified that she had won $16 million in the Canadian lottery. Never entered the Canadian lottery, but she won $16 million. And all she had to do was send $3,500 in cash in a brown envelope to an address in Canada. She did it. One of our good folks here was able to get on the phone with the Canadian police, get on the phone with UPS, and get her package stopped. But people just don't need to rely on that. It's just not going to happen very often, and got her money back.
Another infamous scam is the Nigerian letter, which has been around for over 50 years.
50 years ago, it really was a letter. At least in those days, a crook had to type a letter, stick it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, whatever a stamp cost in those days, had to invest some money.
Today, the Nigerian letter arrives in your email box. The story changes, the amount of money changes, but if you reply, the result is always the same.
I've seen surveys that suggest 1 out of every 10,000 people that get this falls for it, but the average loss when somebody falls is about $11,000. So do the math. You send out millions at a time, 1/10 or 1/100th of a percent falls for it, but multiply that by $11,000 and all of a sudden it's big business.
One of the more insidious modern scams born of the internet is phishing. An email arrives sporting the official-looking logo of your bank or a major company or even the federal government, and they request your immediate action to update your vital data records.
It creates a sense of urgency. Okay? People do it. Of course, what do they ask for? Account number, PIN number, social security number, mother's maiden name, everything they need to steal your identity.
Scams don't always arrive via email. Sometimes they knock on your door. Here's an example of what the Better Business Bureau calls the itinerant worker scam.
There was a fellow, elderly gentleman in the Berkeley area that was sitting at home, knock on the door, and there's people standing there saying, "We just finished paving your neighbor's driveway down the road. We've got some leftover asphalt. If we have to take it back, we're going to throw it away. We're going to give you a good deal. Okay? For $400 on what would normally be a $1,200 job, we'll pave your driveway." Well, the fellow said, "But I only have $40. Well, it was his lucky day. He got that job for $40. First time it rained, it all washed off the driveway.
Most scams aren't specifically designed to target the older population, but cons like the itinerant worker scam do prey upon a generation of retirees. After all, they're more likely to be at home during the daytime to answer the doorbell or the telephone. How can you protect yourself against getting scammed? Randy Hutchison offers this advice.
The old adage, if it sounds too good to be true, it is. The reason it's an adage is because it's true.
A healthy dose of skepticism can go a long way to protecting you. But here are some red flags that can unmask a scam. Be wary of any unsolicited offers. If you're asked to pay money up front, it's probably a scam. If you're sent a check in the mail, especially if it's from a third party, it's probably phony. Be suspicious of any company that only has an email address and no other contact information. And in any correspondence, look for bad grammar and misspellings, which are often signs of an offshore scam ring at work. With the economy still recovering from recession, you can bet scammers are thinking of new ways of separating you from your money. Perhaps we should all heed the words of Deborah Spite.
Be aware of what your mail and your internet is sending you, or people, period, because they're thinking while we're sleeping, and when you wake up and get that mail, it's on. You're at loss.
Funding for the Best Times is provided by Trezevant, a life care community, a celebration of life. The responsible decision for your well-being now and in the long term. And being responsible has never been such a hoot. TrezevantManor.org. The Best Times is the only monthly news magazine exclusively for the age 50-plus reader. Your copy is free at over 200 locations, with important stories and news you don't want to miss. The Best Times is always the best. Since 1988, the H.W. Durham Foundation has been focused on aging issues, providing grants to programs like The Best Times to enrich and improve the quality of life for our older citizens.